Hi everybody, welcome back. It's Heather with Reflecting Inward Life Coaching, and today we're continuing our series on positive change. This is part 3, Challenging Limiting Beliefs. Now, so far we have already done self-discovery, found why we are individually so vastly important and valuable, and why we should be looking at ourselves with awe and wonder and amazement and gratitude for being wonderful, for who we are and what we can bring to this world. The second part was all about healing the child within. So we went in, we found the child, we healed the child, we found some gratitude for the trial. I'm not saying that the challenge, the abuse is justified. We're just saying we're finding a way for it to add positivity to our life instead of allowing it to control us, right? So we've done that already. We found our individual worth. We have healed the inner child. And now the challenge comes when this child is healed. We can feel our value. We know we're worth being treated fairly. And yet every once in a while, something happens and it's like a trigger, takes us right back to that time and we feel it, right? So today we're talking about how we can overcome that immediate response of, oh my gosh, I need to justify myself. I need to defend myself because I'm not good enough. But no, you are good enough. That inner child has given you an automatic response for how to respond to the world. And now the child is healed, but our response is still there. So today we're talking about how to overcome the beliefs and to overcome the automatic response. This helped me so much. And the example that I have here is actually something that happened to me after I went through my own healing the inner child process. And I was using cognitive behavioral therapy on myself. And when I started doing this for myself, my relationships changed drastically. And it took me about 3 times of stopping and going through this process actively before the automatic response stopped being so automatic and I started seeing immediate results. When we put forth the effort and we can retrain our brains. Let's do a quick recap of how limiting beliefs are created. So belief creation starts when we have an experience. And that experience is traumatic enough that when we are analyzing that experience and looking at it, we're trying to piece things together in our mind of what this means and is it dangerous or not? How should I respond? This is where the traumatic event leads to the trauma response that we were talking about in part 2, right? So in this experience, we're interpreting the behavior of those around us and what it means for us. And many times it creates that belief that the way they're behaving is about me. I'm the problem. That's an interpretation, right? They're not actually saying it. It's interpreted because we're analyzing the situation and the experience. So we create this belief. That belief leads to a feeling, right? And then that feeling leads to a bodily response. We talked about this in part 2 as well, but so the increased heart rate, the increased blood pressure, the feeling like your heart is in your throat and you can't speak, labored breathing, these are stress responses, right? This is the body response. And then it leads to our behavior, how we behave. I was going to say choose to behave, but at this point, it's not a choice, right? Our automatic behavior that comes from just the situation. Okay, so our automatic trauma response in our body happens so quickly. It's unconscious. So feeling behavior, there is no perceived control over this. This is the exact same thing as Pavlov and his salivating dog. And if you're not familiar with that, I'll give you a very quick snippet of what it is. They took a dog, they put him in front of food. The dog salivated, ate the food, good. Kept doing this over and over. After a while, they started to ring a bell. Ring a bell, give him food, he would salivate, eat the food. Okay? After a while of combining this bell with the food, they just had to ring the bell and he would salivate because he was associating the bell with food. This is the same thing. Situation associated with trauma body response, behavior response, automatic, and it's happening immediately. Completely normal response. Our amygdala, its job is to protect us from danger. And that's what's happening in our brain. It thinks it's protecting us from danger. So it's a completely normal response. Unfortunately, the behaviors aren't always the most conducive to positive relationships and good outcomes. So that's why we're here today, right? Okay, amygdala function, I must survive, which now, because we're not needing to survive life-threatening things as much, it really has become, I must be in my comfort zone, right? But also defend my personal value as a human being. All right, so here we go, fear and the amygdala. Here is an image of the limbic system, and the amygdala is a part of this limbic system. The limbic system has many functions, including our learning, memory, sense of smell, attention, motivation, hormones, addiction, and the fight or flight response. That last one is the amygdala. Okay, so I want you to take a look at this list here and think about what parts of life are these systems involved in. And I want you to consider, and I hope you realize this yourself, all of them are actively working all the time. All the time. So if you go back to the example in part 2, where I talked about if your trauma experience happens in a hayfield, and the whole time you're staring at a ladybug to keep your attention away from what's happening, and you are listening to a specific country song, let's say, and what's happening is you are learning, your brain has learned to associate the memory and the smell, so the smell of the hay, the memory of the ladybug, and the auditory senses, the memory of the song, any of those things can become triggers, right? So all of them are working all the time to make sense of our world and to teach us what is safe and not safe throughout our entire lives. And it starts very early, pre-birth, okay? So I mentioned before that the amygdala and really the whole limbic system, the purpose is to aid us in our survival, to make sure that we pass on our genes and we survive, we live. Unfortunately, this whole system, this whole limbic system has been retrained to respond to socially threatening situations. And I want you to think about it anthropologically, historically. We group into clans, into family groups, because that group of people is a safety zone. It's also a survival net. You work together to hunt and to gather. You work together to fight off enemies, to ensure your survival. You work together. You're a part of a social system which ensures your survival as an individual. Well, this is still happening today. It's automatic in our brain, set up. The problem is, though, we no longer are physically trying to survive, like the lion, the tiger, the bear, fighting off people coming to kill us, to steal our goods so that they can survive. It's a different kind of survival today. I'm not saying that we're not still struggling to survive. There are plenty of people in the world who are poverty-stricken, who are still just trying to survive. I'm not saying that that's not an issue. What I am saying is that our brains have been retrained to still need the social support for survival. But today, what that looks like is when someone says something that hurts my feelings and I'm offended, I will automatically lash out and defend myself. And that is an automatic response of our amygdala that doesn't need to happen, but it's happening automatically, even though our lives are not being threatened. And that I want you to see is the key here. When it comes to your amygdala responding, is it responding because your life is truly in danger, or is it responding because it's an automatic response that we need to just learn how it works and we need to figure out how to work better with it? What I'm saying is emotional intelligence. Are we aware of why we're feeling what we are feeling, controlling that, knowing that we are not in danger, and have positive interactions and behaviors, even though perhaps we're in a situation that is verbally or emotionally threatening? Our lives are not threatened, but can we deal with the emotions and behave appropriately for the actual situation? Okay? So, challenging limiting beliefs. The way that we reshape thoughts is to go backwards. If you notice, the order of the events here is actually backwards. So the best thing to do really when you're starting to challenge or your limiting beliefs is to start with the behavior. When you notice that there's a behavior happening, then you look at your body. And sometimes many people find that it's easier to actually be like, ooh, I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling anxious, before they even realize, oh yeah, I just did something I shouldn't have done, right? So whichever one works better for you, either whatever you notice first. If you notice the behavior that you exhibited was not the best for the situation, or if your body response is happening first and you notice that first, notice your body, be self-aware, right? Take some time to process how you handle situations. So you notice the behavior, you say, ooh, my body did this right before the behavior, right? It was happening in the exact same moment, it felt like. And then you say, how was I feeling emotionally? At that point when my body was responding, how did I feel emotionally? And then you connect that emotion of a feeling you have to the belief behind the emotion, and then you challenge it. So let's take a look at an example here. This is the process. Bodily response. My bodily response was my shoulders tightened, my breathing felt constricted and was much more labored and slow. My heart rate increased, my blood pressure, even though I can't actually tell that as it is, the anxiety I feel tells me my blood pressure is increasing to fight, right? And then my behavior was I justified or explained my choice, why I did what I did, explaining myself because they just lashed out at me or they corrected me and I felt the need to justify myself. How I felt was judged. I felt judged. I felt incapable. The belief, if she thinks I'm incapable of making good decisions, she will not like me or she will reject me. And then challenge it. Well, look at the belief and the feeling. Am I capable? Do I deserve to be rejected? Is rejection about me or about them? If someone is rejecting, they're doing the action of rejecting. Is the rejection about me or about them? Okay, something to think about. So let's look at this. I hope you notice that you've seen this image before. Do you remember this? Part 1. There's a reason why I had you do all of these assessments and find all these great things about you. Because when you're challenging this belief, you're going to come back to these strengths. You're going to come back to these results and say, I have on paper evidence that will challenge this belief that I am automatically in my feelings and in my behavior. Okay? So just as a review, these are my top 5 values and action character strengths. Creativity, thinking of novel, productive ways to conceptualize and do things. Love of learning, mastering new skills, topics, and bodies of knowledge. Love, valuing close relationships with others. Hope, expecting the best in the future and working to achieve it. And curiosity, taking an interest in ongoing experience for its own sake, just to understand things better, right? So I'm going to take these values now, these strengths, and I'm going to use them in my limiting belief challenge. This is my mental process. As I get to that point, challenging the mental belief here, I know that I am capable of making good decisions. I have made many good decisions in the past. I know her approach with me is based on her own personal limitations and life experiences, her own trauma. Okay? Although she is judging my decision based on her perspective. She is not intending to physically harm me. I am safe. Even if she chooses to reject me due to the situation, that rejection isn't about my personal value. One of my strengths is creativity. I am always looking for more creative and effective ways of doing a task. Perhaps I am not seeing something about this situation that she is seeing. I will use my love of learning and curiosity strengths to discover what might be happening here. I love her as a fellow human being and look forward to learning from her. My hope, strengths tells me that when I humbly ask for insight, our understanding of each other will improve. Okay, now this mental process is obviously lengthy. It took me a couple of minutes to read it aloud. But when you're processing in your mind, these things can come together in seconds. As long as you're aware of your strengths, as long as you are self-aware of who you are and what your value is. The reason we did the self-appreciation first, right? Okay, this is actually a real example of something that happened to me. To better understand this, I will kind of tell you the story. I didn't know at the time that putting coffee grounds down a garbage disposal was a harmful thing. And so I was doing this, and she said to me, this is my colleague, she said, "Stop, don't do that," in that kind of tone. And my heart rate raced, my shoulders tensed. I felt all the bodily responses. And in that moment, I didn't know how to respond. So my automatic response was to freeze. I felt like in my mind, I was trying to justify what I was doing. So this is what happened. This is how we visualize a new response then, okay? So this is an assumption that something happened in the past, and we're looking at something that happened previously, and we're visualizing how we would have done something differently or better, what would have been a better response, a better behavior to deal with the situation. Okay, so you're actually going to visualize this approach with a new belief, okay? Okay, visualizing. Yesterday, when you told me not to put coffee grounds down the sink, I felt shocked by your tone of voice and body language. It took me off guard, and I realize now that perhaps there is something I don't know about putting coffee grounds down the disposal. Okay, so there are two ways you could actually pursue this. You could say, "Would you mind sharing with me your perspective on the situation?" Okay. You could also say, after something I don't know about putting coffee grounds down the disposal, "I would like to understand your perspective on that situation." What's happening here is you're saying, okay, I need to learn something, and maybe you're the one to help me learn it. I am open. Please share it with me. Can you think of anyone who doesn't want to share information that they know? I can't think of anyone that would turn down an opportunity to teach someone something that they know or that they understand. Okay, so now this is how I actually responded the next day. Lately, I've been focusing on being more aware of my insecurities and challenging them. Yesterday, when you told me not to put the coffee grounds down the sink, my body had an anxiety response, and I felt the urge to defend myself. After considering the situation, I realized that your tone of voice triggered an unconscious fear that I am incapable of making good decisions. It is a response to the greater fear that I am not good enough and may be rejected as a result. However, I know that I am good enough and that I'm capable of making good decisions. Perhaps there is something I don't know about putting coffee grounds down the disposal. Would you mind sharing with me your perspective on that situation? I didn't even get all the way through that when I was actually talking to my colleague. I got to an unconscious fear that I am incapable of making good decisions. And right then she said, "Oh, no. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I didn't mean for you to think or feel that way." And then the conversation continued, and she said, "I used to put coffee grounds down the disposal, and then it broke. And we had to call a repairman, and it cost hundreds of dollars to have it fixed. So I just learned by my own experience not to put coffee grounds down the sink. Now, every time I tell this story to a group, they kind of stare at me like, ugh. But I want you to consider that again, her behaviors, her responses are due to her own experience. She's learned to respond in a certain way due to her own unconscious beliefs about her value, her place in relationship to the world around her, and so on and so forth. So her automatic response in the way she behaved really is about her own trauma, even if she doesn't realize she has trauma, and even if she wouldn't be willing to look at it to try to improve it for better relationships. It's still there. It's still in control, okay? Because it hasn't been challenged. It hasn't been replaced with more appropriate, uplifting beliefs and behaviors, okay? Now we get to the invitation for you to act. Now that you understand this, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, but this is what I want you to do. I want you to choose a recent example of when your feelings or your behavior were less than desirable. I want you to break down the experience, acknowledging your behavior, body response, emotion, and belief, just like I did on the previous slides. Write your mental processing in your journal, like the example that was shown above, 2 slides back, right? Where you talk about your strengths and why you know you're good enough and why you're challenging the belief. Next, visualize yourself challenging the belief from a past experience and responding differently. So you're actually visualizing if this event was happening currently with this person, now, how would I respond differently? Okay. And you can do this for as many situations as you would like, even hypothetical ones that maybe may never happen or that you think may happen because of something else that's happening in your life. And then I want you to explain how this approach makes you feel in your journal. After going through the challenging the beliefs and looking at how you explained your mental processing, visualizing, and perhaps even going to that person like I did with my colleague. The next day I went back to her and I talked to her about it. I was very open about why I was coming back to it. I'm working on looking at my insecurities and challenging my insecurities. She, after explaining that to her, she increased in compassion. We became actually more like friends than colleagues at that point. It helped us to be able to comprehend each other better, to communicate and interact with each other better. It helped our overall relationship, both personally and professionally. Okay, so after you visualize, take an opportunity to see if you can go and talk to that person, explain what happened, talk through things. I can almost guarantee you, as long as their trauma is not excessive, I can almost guarantee you that by just explaining and being vulnerable yourself, you will soften them. They will see that you are human, and they will see that you have more in common than they thought before. It invites them to be vulnerable. It invites them to heal. Okay? So, last thing is explain how this approach makes you feel in your journal. How do you feel with this new approach and with this new view of yourself and how to interact with the world, that it can be different? How will it benefit you? And how would it benefit others if they knew about it? Now, I'm not trying to market anything here. You know that this entire program is free. It is readily accessible to anyone. So more than anything, what I want you to consider is being open about what you're going through and giving in an implied invitation, because just you talking about it is going to get them thinking. They're going to start wondering if they have something they need to look at, and they're going to see how this approach changes your life. They're going to see how your behavior changes, how your attitude changes, your interactions change, and they're going to just notice that you seem less stressed, you seem less weighed down, you seem like you're happier, and your approach to experiences in general is going to be much more positive, right? Trust me, when you get to this point and you start feeling great about new ways to approach life and to not feel this automatic response of fear all the time, you will be much more open to try new experiences that you never were comfortable with before, because you don't have the automatic fear telling you that you have to fear the possible response, that you're not good enough for some reason, right? You have a way to work through that, through any fears, really. At this point, do you have questions? Do you have comments? Please feel free to check out social media on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and let me know if you need anything. Our next step, we're going to be talking about how do we make this applicable in everyday life, taking positive change to the world. How does this look, and how do we use these skills to move forward in life? All right? You are fantastic. You are wonderful. I am so grateful for this opportunity to be with you and to share in this journey with you. And please tell me about your success. Tell me about your growth. I look forward to rejoicing and to celebrating with you on your growth and positive change in your world. You are loved. Have a wonderful day.